Welcome everybody to Go Local Live. I'm Josh Fenton, CEO and co-founder. It's blistery, weathery, wintry outside. We are going to the warm inside over at Mott and Chace. It's Wednesday. It's not Prince Spaghetti Day. It is Mott and Chace Day. Ben Scungio joins us. Ben, thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks, Josh. Yet again, best day of the week.
Best day of the week. Let's jump right into it. The reverberations through the real estate market continues to happen on a number of fronts. First and foremost is prices have been up significantly in Rhode Island. In some other regions in the country, prices have flattened out, but in the Northeast, it continues to rise, in the high single digits, low double digits. Your take on this, and are we going to see this continue on into 2025?
Yeah, the Northeast has been an anomaly for a while. It just seems like, the market continues to be strong in this part of the country where you see other parts of the country having extended days on market, multiple, decreasing in somebody who's selling their home and their price, values dropping slightly in some areas significantly. But Rhode Island, Northeast, Massachusetts, Connecticut, we're still really strong. We're going to drop our market report in a few days. I just ran some preliminary numbers to start. November, right? For November, it's looking like $480,000 is going to be the average price of a home, single-family home in the state of Rhode Island, and that's a 10% increase year over year. So, the prices are still going up. Even when everybody thought the prices were going to go down, they thought we were in a recession, mortgage rates are high, we're still hovering right under $500,000 for the state. And then Providence in general, that's a whole nother story that we can dive into. Providence is up significantly year over year. The east side is up significantly year over year. You're looking at Providence in total, $435,000 for a average price of a single family home. Last year, $380,000. The east side is now $905,000 for a single family home. Last year, $816,000. That's almost a 10% difference. So the market's not slowing down.
No, the market's not slowing down. We've got some complications, government interference potentially. On November 1, Mayor Smiley issued a press release after a bond rating from Fitch saying the city's finances were rock solid. Bond rating was improved. All looked to be great. Just 3 weeks later, he announced we're in a financial crisis. He had signed a settlement agreement with the Rhode Island Department of Education, the Providence Public School Department, paying them tens and tens of millions of dollars over the next few years, and said we're in an austerity mode. We're going to freeze employees. We're going to have cuts, and we have to go to the Rhode Island General Assembly for the first time in more than 10 years and ask that the state cap on how much a community can increase its real estate taxes in any one year be waived, so Providence could increase taxes next year more than 4%. This is quite a sea change in just a couple weeks. What does this say? Is this a cautionary tale for those who are looking on the east side, or is this the cost of doing business?
I think it's probably both for some people. It's probably the cost of doing business, and it can be a problem. When we saw the most recent reevaluation happen a few years ago, where we saw the largest price increase in taxes was not in 02906. It was not on the east side. It was in the west side. It was in the south and north end of the city. And those people really saw a significant change in their taxes. And frankly, for a lot of those people, that's a game changer in their finances. On the east side, when the reevaluation happened, there wasn't a huge difference in what their property value was being assessed at. The conversation was, the property values were assessed so low over the years, they were just being brought up to what market value was, which I guess is a valid argument. But we haven't seen a significant increase in taxes on the east side of Providence in a very long time. So this 4% is going to hurt a lot of people if you're on the east side or in any other part of the city. On average, I would have to say, I don't have the statistic in front of me, but I'm just, taking a guess at it. It's probably about $10,000 a year average on the east side. And if you're going from 10,000 to 4,000 with the owner occupied exemption, that's a big jump. It's over $4,000, additional being paid out in real estate taxes.
Yeah, talk a little bit though about you've got this, listen, at least a 4% increase. It has to be more than 4% because the mayor plans on asking the General Assembly to waive the cap. So it's more than 4%. You've got another reval coming. And then, listen, he hasn't said this is a one and done. In all likelihood, this is the first of a number of tax increases. Not necessarily good for his political fate because he raised taxes his first year in office. So this would be potentially 3 out of the 4 years of his 4-year term increasing taxes. And even progressives and liberals on the east side of Providence turn rather conservative when they get hit with higher and higher taxes and less city services. No one likes that combination. So is that just sort of when you're working with a buyer who's coming into the market that you sort of have to educate them about, hey, listen, this is what the taxes are, but do plan on taxes may be 5 or 10 or 15% higher over the next few years?
I think there's a higher likelihood of that coming, being a reality in the next few years now than it ever has been, right? Because we talk about how prices have just increased so much year over year. The assessments have to go up. And unless they start playing the game of lowering and increasing the tax rate and adding additional or removing exemptions, et cetera, I think you're going to see this 4% at a minimum increase on top of an increased assessment, which is then going to, it could potentially increase your taxes anywhere between, probably say 4 to 10%, depending on where you're at, what your assessment is and how much it could potentially go up. But it is the cost of living in Providence. If you want to live on the east side, this is the cost to live here. It's a great place to live. There's a lot of great things about it, but you just have to, this is the reality. You have to assume it. It is what it is.
Another big factor for Providence right now is that the Providence Place Mall has been placed into receivership. Now, it had always been under a series of different tax agreements with the city, so its potential fate does not harm, per se, the city's revenue stream because it wasn't paying a particularly high level of taxes. But from a perception standpoint, and B, sort of just the momentum of the city and how people look at Providence, what does Providence Place Mall mean for sort of the forward look of the city?
I mean, Josh, it's the first thing you see when you get off the highway. I mean, and I've read about this for years now. Malls are just, they're going the way of the dinosaur. It is what it is. Amazon and e-commerce has taken over that business, and people just don't go to malls, and retailers can't survive in malls, and it has to be repurposed. I mean, the state and the city have kind of dropped the ball with repurposing buildings. I mean, Superman has been vacant now for what, almost 8 years, 9 years, 10 years?
We're going on 11.
Okay, 11 years. Time flies when you're having fun, right? And to repurpose a structure like the Superman building is obviously, it's been documented that it's extremely difficult because just based on the era of the structure, what it's been historically used for, residential housing or some component of residential housing in that building is always been talked about to be very difficult to achieve. And you look at something like the Providence Place Mall, where it is like I said, you get off the highway, it's the first thing you see. It's right next to the State House. I can look at it from my office. It's literally in the center of downtown, and something needs to happen with it. My brain's been really working hard on this one because I think there's an opportunity in the mall to create residential housing, apartments, condominiums, whatever it may be. You're not dealing with the structure that's as old as the Superman building. Something there can be done. It should be done. Or it's going to turn into Emerald Square. I mean, that's the bottom line.
Yeah, but you get the bulls running away at the Emerald Square Mall. I think that took place a couple of months ago. Made for plenty of page views, let's put it that way. Ben, overall statewide, it seems like, ever so month by month, prices continue to go up. The frenzy of COVID is over, but that there's, from time to time, houses hit the market and get a tremendous amount of attention and get bid up significantly. That seems to be probably the likelihood of the continuance into 2025. We're not seeing big decreases in the mortgage rate. We are seeing a lot of demand in the Northeast. We have a significant housing shortage. The efforts by the state to build more affordable housing seems to be shall we say, slow at best. Is that what you anticipate? That this spring's going to be like last spring, up 5 to 10% on prices and pretty darn busy.
I mean, the market was trending about 3% better year over year at the end of quarter three, from 2023 to 2024. So, I think it's going to be, I don't think it's going to be the same. I think it's going to be better. It's going to be, I don't want to say it's going to be crazy. It's never going to be COVID. 2020 and 2021, I think those days are far behind us. You're never going to see properties appreciating, 20 to 25% year over year. But the frenzy of the multiple offer situation has seemed to cool down a little bit. Just on the east side, there's like a 2% delta between the asking versus the sales price. So that means homes that are listed at 885 on average are selling for 905. The asking price is 885 and the sold price is 905. So that's a 2% change. So that means homes are selling on average about 2% over asking right now. That wasn't happening 3 years ago. It was much higher, but you could see that starting to significantly slow down. A lot of that has to do with the interest rates, but I'm also questioning, did a lot of that have to do with the election cycle that happened? Because we've chatted about this in the past, Josh. I don't think an election necessarily stalls the real estate market. I think the uncertainty of any major event can stall the real estate market, if that be the stock market, an election, whatever it may be, international crisis. Who knows? So I think there's definitely a lot of pent-up demand over the past 3 months from people waiting and seeing what's going to happen with the election. And now that that is passed and we're going into the winter, which is always a slow time of the year in the state of Rhode Island, it just is what it is. And let's hope we don't get 3 to 4 feet of snow over January and February, because that will also slow down the market a little bit. If the weather stays good, I think we're going to see a very, very busy 2025.
Ben, we seem to get mixed signals on where interest rates are going, and correct me if I'm wrong. Jerome Powell, head of the Federal Reserve, is planning on staying throughout his full term into 2025, so we don't see a huge strategic change there. He has not indicated one way or the other if we're going to see another 25 or two more 25 basis point cuts. There is concern that if Trump, coming into office, implements his tariff strategy, which is quite severe, you'll see an increase in a lot of prices, which may then increase inflation, which would then make another rate cut less likely. So this sort of 6% to a little above 6% mortgage rate, is that what people should anticipate, at least for the first 6 months of 2025?
Yes. And I'm not an economist. I can't speak to inflation and everything that plays into inflation and how that works. I just read the news articles and then articulate it back to you, Josh. But we've talked a lot over the past 12 to 18 months about where the rates are going. I have a lot of mortgage partners that we work with here, that we refer to our clients, and the talk was always like, hey, we're going to get down into the fives. It's definitely going to happen. Inflation's cooling, the rate cuts are happening, so on and so forth. But yeah, this tariff conversation is really interesting. It's like, what is actually going to happen if that comes into play? So I think the safe bet is to say, listen, you're probably looking at 6.5 to 7% for the foreseeable future, for sure.
Okay, last question. This winter, it will be less homes on the market, less demand by buyers. But are there buys to be had? Because there are some people, because of job changes, because of somebody passing along in the family and the inheritance being passed along, or other factors, are there going to be some interesting buys, and how do people take advantage of a slower, quieter winter market?
Historically, there are always buys to have between December and January for the reasons that you just stated. People have to sell property for whatever reason it may be. There's a lot of them. And this time of the year, a lot of buyers hibernate. It is what it is. I can't tell you why. I don't know if it's the cold weather. I don't know if it's the holidays, but a lot of people sit on the sidelines and wait it out to the spring. Maybe they think the inventory is more flush in the spring. Typically it is. We see a huge influx of properties. But if you're somebody who's been looking for a while, and you don't want to get into a multiple offer situation. And like I said earlier, it's cooled down a lot. You're not fighting against 10 people to get a house. You might be fighting against 2 or 3. There are opportunities this time of the year. So if you're strongly considering buying, or you have to buy, put on your snow boots, get out there if it starts snowing, bundle up, put on your winter jacket. It's a great time to get a deal for sure, statewide, not just in Providence.
Ben Scungio, thank you as always. Greatly appreciate you taking the time. For everybody else, stay tuned. We've got stuff breaking throughout the day. 2 big Providence stories this morning. Take a look at those. A tragic situation in New York City. The CEO of United Healthcare was gunned down going into a hotel in Manhattan this morning, and it is believed to be a de facto a targeted hit, according to news reports out of New York City. That's a big deal. United Healthcare has a lot of members here in Rhode Island and has a lot of employees. We'll have updates as those things break. And Providence College gets back Bryce Hopkins and has a huge win over a big BYU team last night at home in downtown Providence. That's a big win for the Friars. It sets up a big game on Saturday, 12 noon at the Ryan Center at URI. 8-0 URI against PC Friars. Stay tuned for updates on everything all day long and into the evening on GoLocal. Thanks, everybody.